In quiet neighborhoods, crimes rarely arrive screaming. They arrive like a breath you don't notice until it's gone, and they leave behind one question that keeps echoing long after the sirens fade. Who got in? Who got out? And how did no one see? Before sunrise on Tuesday, December 30th, 2025, in Weinland Park, Columbus, Ohio, the city was still wrapped in winter darkness when a security camera in a nearby alley captured a lone figure moving through the cold during the window. Investigators later focused on, roughly between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. A dark hoodie, light pants, hands in pockets, a face that refuses to resolve into certainty. It was the kind of clip people would normally ignore, until a case turns it into a keyhole and the entire public leans in, trying to look through. Inside the home, at the center of the story, lived Spencer L. Tepe, 37, a dentist, and Monique F. Tepe, 39, a mother of two. Two adults building the kind of routine that usually protects you by being ordinary. Bedtime, toys on the floor, the soft hush parents keep so they don't wake their kids. That night, two small children and the family dog were also in the house, and the detail that stunned people, because it sounds impossible beside everything else, was that the children and the dog were not physically harmed. That contrast is what makes the case feel unreal. Life untouched in one room and death in another. The mind keeps circling it, as if repeating the fact might eventually make it make sense. The first alarm wasn't a scream in the night. It was absence in the morning. Spencer didn't show up for work. Calls and messages went unanswered. Someone close to him asked police for a wellness check, the kind of request people make when they feel a worry they can't name. Officers went to the home, and once inside, they found Spencer and Monique dead from gunshot wounds. In one instant, the case became two stories at once. A tragedy for a family and a puzzle for a city. The most frightening crimes don't only take lives, they fracture everyone's sense of what home is supposed to mean. Almost immediately, questions poured in. Was it a break-in? Was anything stolen? Did anyone hear anything? And how could something so violent happen without waking the street? Early coverage emphasized how little seemed disturbed and how limited the public information was at first. No obvious signs of forced entry were highlighted early on, and investigators held back details while they worked. Blank spaces invite imagination, and imagination can be cruel. The story moved fast. First the neighborhood, then Columbus, then national headlines, because it carried the shape of a modern nightmare. An ordinary family home, two adult victims, children left unharmed, and a shadow in an alley before dawn. Investigators did what they always do when time is the only witness. They went back to cameras, doorbells, street views, alley angles. They stitched together a timeline from tiny, unromantic facts. Headlights passing, a silhouette crossing a frame, a vehicle pausing where it shouldn't. Police later described how that work pointed toward a vehicle seen arriving in the area before the suspected time of the killings and leaving afterward. They also stressed that public tips helped connect what cameras showed to what detectives needed. Sometimes footage gives you a path but not a name, and it takes one call from someone who recognizes a car, a routine, a pattern, to turn a path into a person. As the days passed, the case narrowed toward a name that changed how people heard the story. Michael David McKee, 39, described in reporting as a doctor from Chicago and, crucially, Monique Tepe's ex-husband. The public learned that Monique and McKee had been married and later divorced years earlier, and that history made the case feel intensely personal rather than random. While investigators did not publicly lay out a full motive in the early stages, police characterized the killings as a targeted attack connected to domestic violence. Language that signals deliberation, not chance. With that framing, the most unsettling question sharpened. If it was targeted, did the person already know the door, the habits, the quiet ways to move? On January 10, 2026, less than 2 weeks after the murders, authorities arrested McKee in Rockford, Illinois, hundreds of miles from the Columbus home. Reports said he waived a lengthy extradition process, a procedural choice that clears a faster path for transfer back to Ohio. With the arrest came another shift. The alley video that started as a rumor of a shadow became part of a formal narrative. Local reporting later said authorities confirmed the man in the alley footage was the suspect. The blurry clip that fueled public speculation was now being treated as something prosecutors could point to and defenders would have to challenge. In cases like this, an image doesn't end the debate. It moves the debate into court. Investigators also pointed to forensic links, including ballistic evidence. Major coverage cited allegations that the firearm involved may have been fitted with a suppressor. An allegation, not a verdict, but a detail that would explain why a neighborhood could remain quiet while something so violent happened inside. Still, the legal system doesn't run on mood, fear, or speculation. Every claim has to survive the hard light of court. What investigators say they can prove. What defense attorneys say they can dispute. What evidence holds. What breaks under cross-examination. Even strong cases can fail if one link is weak, and weak cases can harden if many small links lock together. The major procedural turning point came on January 16, 2026, when a Franklin County grand jury indicted McKee, including 4 counts of aggravated murder for the deaths of Spencer and Monique. Other coverage referenced additional charges such as aggravated burglary, and some reporting mentioned aggravated robbery as well. An indictment is not the end of a story, but it is the moment the state says, in writing, that it believes it can make the timeline stand upright. It's a bridge between investigation and prosecution, a signal that the case has moved from gathering to confrontation. If convicted, reporting noted that McKee could face life in prison, with outcomes depending on how charges are sustained and what the court orders under Ohio law. By January 18, 2026, McKee remained in custody in Illinois as extradition and court procedures continued toward bringing him back to Ohio. For the public, it can feel like the story pauses here, but it doesn't. It tightens in paperwork, hearings, and scheduling, inside filings and sealed exhibits that won't be dramatic until someone reads them aloud in open court. Meanwhile, the practical consequences were immediate and brutal. 2 children needed care, stability, and decisions no child should have forced on them. Community support and fundraising became part of the aftermath, because the case wasn't only about what happened in the night. It was about what happens the next morning and the next week and the next year. To understand why this case spread so widely, you have to picture the contrast. At 3 a.m., a neighborhood can look like any sleeping street. Porch lights, the hush of winter, the faint sound of a distant highway. In that stillness, the smallest things feel ominous. Tire tracks that weren't there yesterday. An alley that suddenly feels like a corridor between lives. People didn't just share headlines. They shared the details that hurt. The victims were a married couple, parents, people with routines, and the crime happened where routines are supposed to be safest. The alley clip became an obsession because it was the only part of the night anyone could see, and viewers replayed it as if certainty could be extracted from pixels. And this is where suspense becomes different from mystery. Even after a suspect is named and indicted, the narrative is still incomplete until trial reveals what the state will show and what the defense can undermine. The story keeps returning to the same hinge between what we know and what we don't. We know the date, the place, the victims, and the basic fact of gunfire. We know a suspect was identified, arrested out of state, and indicted with severe charges, and we know police framed the attack as targeted and connected to domestic violence. But the public still doesn't know the private sequence. The entry, the first words, the moment the night turned irreversible. Until those answers are spoken in court, the case remains a looped warning, proof that sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what you can see, but what